We have just completed a sweeping update of our Dynasty trade value charts ahead of NFL free agency. The 2024 rookie picks have been added in, all the pick values adjusted, our Dynasty rankings adjusted, market values, buys, sells, and holds have been adjusted as well. My definition of a sell in Dynasty Fantasy Football is when I can get something more than what that player is actually worth. So today I'm going to be breaking down some of my biggest sells across every fantasy position. Of course, these trade value charts are available on flockfantasy.com. That will be linked down below in the pinned comment. You'll also gain access to first priority to Dynasty decisions videos, trade calculator, Dynasty rookie draft guide, including 30 coming soon, 50 player prospect write-ups, comparisons, and grades. If you enjoy this video at any point, you know what to do. Leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Now let's get into it. All right, so you guys might be wondering why I'm talking about sells and not about buys. And the reason is because at this time of year in Dynasty, in March, where we're at right now, this is one of the best times to buy rookie draft capital because we're starting to get an understanding for how these picks are going to shake out. We're starting to understand, especially if you guys are watching this channel, you know, we're about 40 prospects, 45 prospects deep into our draft guide as it currently stands. I know how good this class is. I know where the value pockets are, where the tier breaks are. So pretty much every guy that I talk about in this video, I'm going to be aiming to sell for future rookie picks or for 2024 rookie picks. And the pick values that you guys will see listed on the screen is how I value these players, but ideally, because they're sells, the open market should value them a little bit higher. Ergo, you should be able to get a little bit more than what I value them for, and that's exactly how you want to use these Dynasty trade charts. Don't worry, contenders. You guys will have plenty times to buy vets. To me, May, June, July, August is the time that you do that. But right now, rebuilders need to dig in. House money teams need to dig in. So let's get right into it with the hard sells. And I'm going to say it again because I can't stress this enough. These guys are sells not because I hate them. They're sells because I think they are worth more on the open market than they are worth to me. So based on my current value, I think these guys are good sell options. So the hard sells, meaning these guys are worth way more on the open market than I value them to be, are Cooper Kupp, Terry McLaurin, and Christian Watson. We're going to start with Cooper Kupp. Of course, Cooper Kupp, the reason he's such a hard sell for me is because I feel like people are still valuing him to some degree, especially in more casual leagues, that he's going to have this wide receiver one overall upside. In my opinion, I think we should be treating him a lot closer to a guy like Keenan Allen. 31-year-old slot receiver, wide receiver 23 in points per game last year. He's dealt with injuries. He's still valued for some reason as a top 35 asset on Keep Trade Cut at wide receiver, and especially in casual formats, I think that name value will carry a ton of weight. So if you guys have Cooper Kupp and you're deciding, hey, should I rebuild? Should I contend? Whatever the case is, I do think that Cooper Kupp should be on your short list of guys to shop away from your Dynasty team. So Terry McLaurin is the next guy that I have listed here. And for me with Terry McLaurin, he's constantly talked about as like the most underrated receiver in the league. And I think from a real life perspective, he's definitely a great receiver. But when are we going to admit that Terry McLaurin might be one of the most overrated Dynasty and fantasy wide receivers? Because he has been a wide receiver 3 flex option type of guy pretty much his entire career outside of one season. He's now going to be 29 before kickoff this year. The Commanders were top half in the NFL with 24 passing touchdowns and led the league in pass attempts. So I don't want to hear that Terry McLaurin has never had a good quarterback and he might get one here, because Sam Howell was definitely good enough to support a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 season out of Terry McLaurin last year, with especially how bad Jahan Dotson was and some of the other talent around there. But Terry McLaurin yet still only produced 12.3 PPR points per game and a wide receiver 34 finish. So a rookie quarterback, especially if it's Jaden Daniels, who's more of a rushing threat, is not going to just suddenly make him a wide receiver 1. Drake May definitely has a better chance at doing that, but to be honest, as a rookie, I don't see a huge difference between those guys and Sam Howell, especially when you factor in that the Commanders literally led the league in pass attempts last year. So with Terry McLaurin, I think he's a fine wide receiver 3, fine flex option, but there are people out there, because of his name value and how good he is, that think he is more than that, and I don't think he is more than that. So other hard sell of this video is Christian Watson, and we talked about Christian Watson on our 2 hard players to rank. It's hard to determine where Christian Watson is valued. Right now, I thought wide receiver 50 was very reasonable, which is where I have him ranked. I did not know that Keep Trade Cut has this guy in the mid 30s still. I did not think that Christian Watson was that highly thought of. A lot of similarly talented players in that receiving core, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, and the tight ends to throw to. There's a lot of target competition, and really none of them are really separating themselves as clearly better than the other. I'm not convinced that Christian Watson is anything more than a boomer bust deep threat. He could be a stud talent like everybody's kind of projecting with that top 35 valuation, but the prices I have listed here is what I value these players at. Obviously, it should go without saying that you should get more than this, but to me, Christian Watson is worth about a mid-second round pick, and top 35 dynasty wide receiver price tags like he has on Keep Trade Cut should indicate to me that you can get borderline first round capital for this guy, a future first in 2025, maybe an early second plus in this year's class. And these three guys specifically, I am definitely going to be shopping if I have them on my roster. So now let's get into the soft sells. And the soft sells, again, these are going to differ more league to league because market value is going to change and that kind of thing. But regardless, if you have some of these players on your team, I think it is worth shopping them and seeing what you can get on the open market. Let's start with one of the most divisive wide receivers in Dynasty, Jaxon Smith-Njigba from the Seattle Seahawks. Every league has a JSN truther, in my opinion, in my experience. So I am about to look at the market value of JSN. I think it's about 106, 107, 108 in the 2024 rookie picks consideration, or maybe a 2025 first and second. To me, that's a little steep for a guy that didn't have a great rookie season. I'm sure people are going to point to the fact that he was caught behind Tyler Lockett. He was caught behind DK Metcalf. Again, that's fine. If you still believe in JSN, that's okay. But I also recognize that JSN also might not be that good based on what we've seen from his rookie season. That is an equal outcome, in my opinion, as much as the truthers will point to. Look at his profile. He was caught behind these guys. That's one outcome. The other outcome is maybe he's not the guy that we thought he is. So for me, if you can get a top 6, top 7 rookie pick in this class, which is definitely possible in some leagues, I would definitely cash out for that. If all you can get on your open market right now is the 111 in this rookie class, then you're probably fine holding JSN. Again, with sells, it's always about what you can get, not what you totally think about the player. The risk profile that JSN has, I'm okay giving up a late first round pick, a very late first round pick in this year's class for it. But if I can get 106, 107 on the table right now and I can re-roll into Romo Dunze, I'm absolutely doing that. So another soft sell of this video is Stefon Diggs. And for me, he's kind of a bit of a hard case because when you look at the Buffalo Bills, I mean, they're cleaning house, especially on defense right now. Stefon Diggs is old. Could he bounce back? Sure, he definitely could bounce back, but especially if you're trying to tear down your roster or if you're caught in limbo, I think Stefon Diggs is the type of guy that you should re-roll into a top 10 rookie pick or re-roll into a younger wide receiver, try and get up to Rashee Rice, Jordan Addison, Tank Dell, Zay Flowers, guys like that. So with Steph Diggs, again, he is a great fantasy wide receiver, and he might still be, but I'm worried about the downside risk factor of what if this is the next DeAndre Hopkins situation? What if this is the next Cooper Kupp situation where they're starting to fall off from a talent perspective? Definitely not totally out on Diggs, but I will say I'm absolutely shopping him if I do have a Stefon Diggs truther who's going to look at name value in my fantasy league. So Jaden Reed, the last guy that I'm going to talk about individually here as a soft sell, I'm scarred from some of these smaller wide receivers. I don't know about you guys, but the second we get like a Jahan Dotson or a Jaden Reed or something, we want to pop these guys all the way up the dynasty wide receiver rankings, and I think we're being unrealistic with Jaden Reed right now. What is his dynasty ceiling realistically as a dynasty asset? Yeah, he's tethered to Jordan Love. Yeah, he's a talented player. He gets design touches. But realistically, I don't see this guy getting any better than top 24, top 30 dynasty wide receiver anytime soon. So I'm okay missing out on gaining a smidge more value from his wide receiver 35-ish price tag right now. If I can swap him 1-for-1 for somebody with more upside, for George Pickens, for, one of these rookies, a top 12 pick in this class, maybe use him to get up to a stud. Maybe you can get up to T. Higgins. Maybe you can get up to Drake London. Maybe you can get up to Brandon Ayuk, somebody like that, using Jaden Reed and a second rounder, for example. So if you can use him to get up, or you can re-roll for a top 10 especially, but even a top 11 or 12 rookie pick in 2024, Jaden Reed is probably the type of guy that I would be okay selling. You probably spent a mid to late second round pick on him, so you're taking a profit no matter what. You don't have to hold on to Jaden Reed until he potentially loses some value if Christian Watson is indeed the number one there, or if Jordan Love maybe isn't what we thought he is, or if Jaden Reed is just capped because he's a slot receiver. Like, there's so many different outs that he could lose value, which is why I think he's a decent candidate to potentially shop and pocket some profit out of that. So with all of these guys, remember, if you can't get more than what is listed here, definitely don't sell them. Like, don't just sell Jaden Reed because I said he was a sell. Definitely see what he's worth and then come back and reevaluate at that point in time. So with these veteran guys, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, and Chris Godwin, these guys are fine win now options. Don't get me wrong. If you have a really, really good top 3, top 4 team in your league, I'm fine just holding these guys. But if you can sell them for potentially late first, probably not, but more like early to mid second round price tags, I think that you could potentially do that, because given how deep this wide receiver class is, given how deep this class is in general, I do think swapping Amari Cooper for the 202 is a smart process move. Swapping Chris Godwin for the 204 is a smart process move, especially if your team is more caught in limbo rather than a clear-cut top-end contender. Any early round, second-round pick should be fine for these guys. If you can somehow use them to get a first-round pick, even better. So anyone from Romeo Doubs down to Jonathan Mingo for the rest of this soft sells list is strictly a sell for one reason and one reason alone. This 2024 rookie class is deep as hell. It's a very good class, and if you can get any semblance of a second-round pick for anybody from Romeo Doubs down to Jonathan Mingo, I would 100% pull the trigger and sell that asset off my team. Why? Because I'm mitigating the risk that Quentin Johnston and Treylon Burks and Marvin Mims, these guys that maybe you like but are not solidified assets, just re-roll them into a second rounder. Look what would have happened if you did that last year with some of these on the fringe type of assets and you re-rolled it into Jaden Reed, or you re-rolled it into Rashee Rice, or you re-rolled it, into Sam Laporta or somebody like that. That is the process why you're doing that. If you trust your ability to draft, these are the types of moves I'm always looking to make. So let's move on to the running back position. Wide receiver obviously was the most in-depth that we had to go. The running back position, some of my hard sells, you guys can see them on the screen. This guy's going back and forth, yo-yoing his dynasty value all offseason so far. But Tyjae Spears, who I once considered a buy, is a great upside swing in theory. Don't get me wrong. But did you guys know that Tyjae Spears is currently valued as the RB13 on Keep Trade Cut? That's fine. Upside case, he can be valued as that. You know, that's where James Cook and Isaiah Pacheco are kind of sitting in the dynasty running back ranks. But he's being valued as if he's already done that, as if he's already those guys. And we don't know for sure if they're going to add somebody to this backfield. We don't know for sure if Derrick Henry is 100% gone, even though it looks like he will be. To me, I think he's the perfect guy to take down a peg. Try and tier up to a different guy that's more solidified. If you can take Tyjae Spears in a second-round pick and go buy low on Rachaad White or something, I would rather do that than hold on to a shaky asset or a shakier asset than Tyjae Spears. Brian Robinson and Najee Harris are two guys that I've listed as hard sells here as well, because to me, they're just low upside options. They split backfields. Yeah, they can be maybe RB2s in fantasy, but they're going to have either rookie quarterbacks or, bridge quarterbacks or Kenny Pickett starting for their teams, and they have backfield competition. So holding as depth for contenders is fine if you have Brian Robinson and Najee Harris, but the market likes them more than I do. So in any case, I'm going to use these guys to try and cash out for an early to mid second rounder if I can, because imagine if you hit on a Trey Benson, if you hit on a Jonathan Brooks at running back, or hell, you just go with a different position group entirely and you hit on Ladd McConkey or Troy Franklin, you're going to feel really, really good about re-rolling your capped at RB25 and dynasty upside guy like Najee Harris. These next guys I can group together, Kendre Miller and Zamir White, because both of these guys, their values are inflated by projected volume and they don't even have these roles yet. So I'm not really sure why we're valuing Kendre Miller and Zamir White as if they've done anything, because I would like anybody to point me to the stat that tells me Kendre Miller's rookie season was good, because he had a pretty forgettable rookie season. Zamir White, didn't like him as a prospect. He's fine if he gets the volume, but there's talk that Josh Jacobs is going to be back with the Raiders. So for me, these two guys, I would sell them before free agency, before stuff starts, moving around. There's just so much risk holding assets like this, and I don't think it's worth it, especially considering you can maybe get random second round picks in 24, 25, or 26 for some of these assets if that's possible. If it's not possible, then fine, hold them on your roster, but I'm pretty concerned about those dudes being all the way up in like the top 35, top 30 dynasty running backs without having earned that. So Keaton Mitchell as well, he's still a top 35 dynasty running back which I don't get. I mean, he's an undrafted free agent. He showed a lot, but he tore his ACL. He's going to have a rough time coming back. He's a fun player, but definitely not a top 25 or top 35 dynasty running back where he's being valued. You maybe can get a second rounder for him. You'd be hard pressed to do that, but if you can, definitely take that all the way to the bank. And same goes for Jerome Ford. I mean, Jerome Ford, thanks for filling in for Nick Chubb, but any second rounder and you're off my team, even any 2/3, and he'd be off my team because I would rather re-roll him into this rookie class. So some of the soft sells at the running back position. This one's going to annoy some people, but Christian McCaffrey to me is a soft sell strictly for this reason. So don't go to the comments, please, and say that Christian McCaffrey's never a sell because he's one of the best running backs ever. I'm aware of that. The reason that I think Christian McCaffrey is a soft sell is because you need to look at your roster, see if you are actually ready to compete, take a good, hard, long look in the mirror, look at your roster, look at everybody else's rosters, because if Christian McCaffrey is not on a top 3 dynasty roster, then you are not equipped to hold this asset. You need to sell him off and try and get, pick equity, try and get younger, whatever you need to do. And even if you do have a top 3 to 4 team with Christian McCaffrey on it, I think you should do your due diligence anyway and see if you can get Jonathan Taylor in a second for him or Travis Etienne in a second for him. Because if you can do that, you're still solidifying a top-end running back for your competitive window, and you insulate away from Christian McCaffrey's risk factor, and you get a second-round pick to help add more pieces to your team, extending your winning window. So people might not like that one, but I told you this with Austin Eckler last year, and look how that worked out. Aging running backs, regardless of how good they are, and Christian McCaffrey is one of the best to ever do it, especially from a fantasy perspective, the second he gets hurt, the second he's not giving you RB1 overall in fantasy production, his value is going to tank. So unless you're an elite team, you don't need to be holding Christian McCaffrey thinking that you can just sell him at a different point in time. James Cook and DeAndre Swift, two guys that are also soft sells here. They're fine holds if you like them. I'm just not as huge on those two guys as everybody else seems to be. If I could cash in for a late first on James Cook, I would. Early second for DeAndre Swift, I would. There's some uncertainty with backfield roles for James Cook. DeAndre Swift, of course, is a free agent, still kind of riding the coattails of being on the Eagles. So for me, those two guys are worth shopping if you have them. Alvin Kamara and Nick Chubb are like cheaper versions of Christian McCaffrey. Unless you're a top 3 or 4 team, you better not have them on your roster. And even if you do have them on your roster and you are a top 3 to 4 team in your league, I would still try and get younger if I can. If I could sell Alvin Kamara and a 3rd round pick for Roschon Johnson and a 2nd round pick, take the risk on the young back and insulate it with a 2nd rounder, that is absolutely something I think you can pull off in casual leagues. And I do think that a lot of people would be willing to do that. And again, you might be thinking, well, if I'm competitive, why would I sell Alvin Kamara? The reason that you would do that is because you can turn around and sell that 2nd rounder that you got in the trade for a competitive running back closer to the season, mitigating this risk window of free agency in the NFL draft where a guy like Alvin Kamara might lose a lot of value, or a guy like Nick Chubb, if that's who you're holding, could lose a lot of value. So again, it's all about risk mitigation, as any good investor would tell you. So definitely keep that in mind. Let's close this video out with the quarterback and with the tight end position. You guys can see some of the quarterback sells on the list right now. The biggest one to me is Anthony Richardson, and it's not because I don't like Anthony Richardson. It's because if you guys are risk-averse dynasty players, you will remember that last year we had a guy in this exact position by the name of Justin Fields. 2 years ago, we had a guy in this exact position by the name of Trey Lance. These mobile quarterbacks absolutely have top-end upside. If Anthony Richardson hits and he looks like an elite NFL quarterback next year, he's going to be borderline the 101 in Dynasty, probably a top 5 lock. But right now, he's being valued as like a top 8, top 10 overall startup pick, and to me, that's just a smidge high. I value him more so as an early 2nd rounder, mid-2nd rounder potentially, and you can be a great fantasy quarterback like Anthony Richardson projects to be and still have long-term, is he going to be a starter in the NFL concerns? Just like Justin Fields. Justin Fields was a top 5 to 6 dynasty fantasy quarterback last year, and we don't know if he's going to start for an NFL team right now. That is the risk with these hyper-mobile, inaccurate, kind of got some work to do as passers type of quarterbacks. If you are a risk-averse dynasty player, which some of you definitely probably are, take that quarterback 8, quarterback 9 price tag that you have for Anthony Richardson and sell him for Jordan Love. Sell him for Trevor Lawrence. Hell, use a 2nd round pick and try and get to Joe Burrow, or to try and get to Justin Herbert, or to Lamar Jackson. Because even though you might lose that trade, obviously if Richardson hits big, he's going to be worth more than those guys. but you're protecting yourself against him becoming the next Justin Fields, him becoming the next Trey Lance. And not like it's going to happen fast, but if he never becomes a great NFL passer, which is definitely within his range of outcomes given his profile coming out of school, then you mitigate all of that risk by just getting a better asset, a more secure asset who might not quite have the same level of upside, but has a much, much higher floor. And at quarterback, floor is an underrated thing when it comes to keeping your starting job because, of course, in Superflex leagues, starters are the ones that hold value. So these next four guys I can kind of just group together: Jared Goff, Deshaun Watson, Stafford, and Baker Mayfield. The reason that they're soft sells is because they currently make up the top end of the early 20s dynasty quarterbacks. And this area of dynasty quarterback rankings has been basically like the quarterback version of the RB dead zone in redraft. It's because, Daniel Jones, Derek Carr, Geno Smith, Russell Wilson, the guys that were there last year, the NFL is a hard league, man. If you don't have a top 15 quarterback in real life, teams start to think that maybe they could do better. Maybe they could go out and get a better quarterback. And as a Bucs fan, this terrifies me on Baker Mayfield. Even though his dynasty outlook looks rosy right now, what happens if by midseason we're losing a bunch of games and it looks like we're going to have a high-end pick? You're going to really regret spending a top 24 dynasty quarterback asset pick on a guy that was really volatile from a long-term perspective. And same goes for Stafford. He's old. He's got injury concerns. Watson has played like shit. Jared Goff, of course, could melt down at any time, and teams like to seem like they're willing to move on from him. So these guys, they have a lot of risk. There's not a huge difference between these guys and the guys that are quarterback 25 to 32. I know it seems like there's a big difference, but trust me, every year, guys like this, 2 or 3, 4 of them potentially, will lose a lot of value. A couple guys will come up in value. The only constant is those top 10, top 15 dynasty quarterbacks that constantly hold their value because we know their NFL teams are not trying to replace them anytime soon. So that's the thing I worry about with Goff, with Watson, with Stafford, and with Mayfield. They're starters right now. Their outlooks look decent right now, but their long-term outlooks are something that we have to question a little bit. Use them. The best case scenario to get rid of these guys is use them. Use Jared Goff. Use Deshaun Watson. Use Matthew Stafford. Use Baker Mayfield. Go up and get a better quarterback who is insulated, who does have a better long-term outlook. If you can trade Jared Goff plus for Jordan Love or for Trevor Lawrence or for Kyler Murray, go ahead and do that because it makes your team a lot more safe and averse of risk going forward. So the tight end position, we're going to close this out very quickly. Only 3 sells that we have at this position. Travis Kelce is the tight end version of Christian McCaffrey. If your team is not elite, you should not have him on your roster. And even if you do have an elite team and you have Travis Kelce on your team, see what you can use to try and extend your winning window, move off of a guy who's pretty much a one-year rental. Trade Travis Kelce for George Kittle plus if you can. Trade Travis Kelce for Kittle straight up or Njoku straight up, and you still get a good tight end, but you extend your winning window if possible. And then Isaiah Likely and Luke Musgrave, they're sells simply because they're not even the best tight end on their own team. So I have no idea why the dynasty market thinks they're top 15 dynasty tight ends because in my estimation, Tucker Kraft was much more impressive than Luke Musgrave. Isaiah Likely is only relevant if Mark Andrews is hurt. So I don't know why these guys are top 15 dynasty tight ends. Maybe you can net second round picks for these guys. Maybe you can't. But even if you can, I would be fine using these types of assets, Luke Musgrave and Isaiah Likely, to go take a shot on your truthers, right? I'm a truther of J.K. Dobbins. I don't want to give up a second round pick for J.K. Dobbins, but I am okay giving up Luke Musgrave for J.K. Dobbins because he has value on the open market, and I don't want to give up those rookie pick values for a guy coming off of a torn Achilles. Whoever you really like in Dynasty, these are the types of dudes I would use to go and acquire them. Find a tight end needy team. Maybe you love Elijah Moore. Maybe you love Wan'Dale Robinson. Whatever guy you want to go after, send them Luke Musgrave or Isaiah Likely. Use them in package deals because they have value enough to the point that people get excited about them, but they don't have enough value that you can just swap them straight for like an early to mid second rounder. But if you can, obviously go ahead and do that. So that is the end of the video. Again, I went through Dynasty trade sells basically at every position. If this video gets 300 likes, I will do buys at every position again. But of course, if you want to know who are the buys, what you should pay for them, what are they worth, all that good stuff for Superflex, one quarterback leagues, tight end premium leagues. You guys saw a sneak peek of the Dynasty trade value charts here. That is available on flockfantasy.com. Down below in the description, you'll see the promo code FSE gets you 30% off, gets you a 7-day free trial, and it gets you a free Zoom consultation and 6 months for free if you want to sign up annually. We will be starting up a listener Dynasty Startup League very, very soon. We did it in March last year. We'll probably do it at the end of March, mid-March this year as well. So if you want a chance to get in that league and be in a league with me and Danny, the best way to do it will be people who sign up on Flock. And if you sign up as annual Mother Flockers, you'll have all the more chances to potentially get into that league. And of course, when you sign up over there, again, you get the Dynasty trade value charts, all of our Dynasty rankings, one quarterback, super flex, prospects, Dynasty trade calculator, first priority to Dynasty decisions, bonus articles, bonus videos. We're going to be starting film breakdowns very, very soon. March 15th, our top 50 overall prospects and our draft guide gets extended from 30 to 50. So tons of content available there. If you play Dynasty Fantasy Football, is the #1 place you need to be. Check it out down below in the description. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.